What's going on, guys? So, welcome to another episode of Against the Flow. This is a different environment than what I'm usually in. Um, and this is going to be a really cool interview because I'm actually going to be doing an interview podcast with a buddy of mine. He is not in the same state, which is why I'm doing a video recording. But I don't really want to give too much away. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, leave a review. Don't forget to follow me at Yeno Sounds on Twitter and on Instagram. That's the best way to find me. And yeah, pretty much let's get into another episode of Against the Flow. All right, so we are here. We're doing it with my friend Brian Fire. What's going on, man?
What's going on, dude? Happy to be on.
Dude,
it's exciting.
Yeah, man, for sure. This is new, exciting. First time doing this, so hopefully everything turns out great.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. First time meeting you face to face and everything too.
Yeah,
so it's pretty rad. Not gonna lie, rad.
Yeah, I mean, like we've been, talking on Twitter and Instagram, and so this is our first time meeting each other. But why don't you, just give a little backstory on like how you got into music and how you started producing?
Oh wow. So music, it goes back a little further back. So my first instrument, picked that up back in 5th grade. So around, I believe I was 11 at that time. So I picked up trumpet, and initially, I was kind of following the steps of my older brother, because he played clarinet, and I was like, oh wow, I want to be just like my older brother and everything. And my parents were like, well, we kind of want you to play trumpet, and so like, okay. And then I looked over at the percussion instruments. I'm like, oh man, I want to hit stuff. I want to play drums. I want to play beats at a young age. But that didn't happen quite immediately. So I picked up trumpet 5th grade. Around middle school, my friend asked me to be in his rock band with him. So I'm like, I don't know how to play guitar, but I'm gonna learn. So I picked up guitar, and then my dad has spare bass guitar in the basement, and that all panned out. And around 8th grade, I also picked up drum set. So it's just during that time, I just picked up like the core rock band instruments. Then all throughout high school, I continued playing drum. Towards the end of high school, I picked up tenor sax, but like only for a single semester. And all throughout college, that's when I started getting, a little bit more serious about songwriting. So I've primarily wanted to do like indie rock stuff, because I've been inspired by bands like Modest Mouse or Foster the People, especially Foster the People. And during that time in college, I was thinking like, well, I really don't know how to like record all these songs, and that's kind of where I stumbled up. And I didn't know what a DAW was. I didn't know what music production software was. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to mess around with this. And, one thing led to another. And I eventually started learning how to produce. And I ended up producing on Logic as well. I started producing on Logic towards the end of my college semester, or just, end of college in general. And yeah, but at least like my history with dance music is a slightly different story. I started listening to dance music around 2004, and it was completely by accident. My brother he had like files, I think from Napster or, LimeWire, something around that time. Hardcore Nation with Stu Allen. Completely obscure. I don't know where he got it. He said he got it from, but that's when I first discovered happy hardcore. And I started listening to, people like Breeze and Styles and Gammer. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And at the same time, my brother was completely obsessed with Dance Dance Revolution. So everything there, and I've always liked the music, but it never really turn into something that I knew I could make until many, many years later. Especially when I started getting into music production, I'm like, oh wow, well, you can manipulate the instruments to sound like this, or you can make different beats that sound like this. That's kind of where it all accumulated and has come out from.
I feel like everyone it's kind of like everyone has the same backstory, but at the same time it's different. Like we all just kind of, well, for Mac users, we just kind of stumble upon GarageBand, and
Yeah.
for the other people, a friend of so and so told them about FL Studio or Fruity Loops at the time or whatever. I will all just stumble upon it, and I started listening to dance music, but I didn't know it was in that category of dance music. I just knew it as DDR
Yeah.
music. But for me,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, but I didn't think there was like an actual genre for that type of music. And like people actually,
Yeah, I completely get it.
yeah, and I was like, people just made it. If you had to pinpoint the first EDM track that you were exposed to, do you remember what it was?
Exactly. I do remember what it was. I didn't know what it was at the time, but dude, this track was massive. Everybody knows it. One more time. Daft Punk.
Daft Punk?
That was like 2001.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I listened to Daft Punk, but still, like same thing. Like I didn't know it was dance music. But I think the first
Mhm.
one that led me down the rabbit hole of uh of the entire genre, because like I said before, you kind of listen to it and just kind of there. But
Mhm.
the song that kind of did it for me, and I just went on SoundCloud, YouTube, and just went down the rabbit hole. It was Cascade Atmosphere. You gotta know that song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dude, I was
Damn.
I was driving my friend somewhere, and he was like, "Hey, can I get the aux?" And then I was like, "Sure." And then he played "Atmosphere" by Cascade. I was like, "What, dude? What is this music? Like,
Oh, that is
it's
awesome.
so like melodic, but it's like you can
Yeah.
dance to it, and like the lyrics are like limited." I was like, "Man, that's crazy."
How long ago was that?
Man, I think I was a senior in high school, so like
Oh, okay.
2014. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
like not into that dance music. Like you like go way back to Daft Punk, but I was more like, you know,
Mhm.
2014 when it was starting like at its infantry. But now it's like everybody listens to dance music.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Because yeah, when I first stumbled upon that Daft Punk, it was the music video. So it's the one with Interstellar 555, all the blue aliens
Right.
dancing.
Hmm.
I think it may have been. I think I was flipping through the channels when I was like 6, 7 or so, and it was probably like on MTV when MTV still aired like a number of music videos, and I do recall seeing that on TV, and I was like, "This is awesome!" Because I think I was more impressed with the side chaining. I didn't know what it was called at the time. I just knew that the song was going, and
Hmm.
I was like, I don't know how like this sound or this music exists, but it was just so ingrained in me so vividly. Plus like everyone's like happy and dancing in the music video. So I was like, this is so fun. I didn't know what
Hmm.
it was, but that one just clearly sticks out to me.
I feel like for a lot of us music producers, it's like we always listen to a certain track or whatever, and then like it kind of gets us thinking like, how did they make this? And then it kind of leads us down to our own curiosity, and then we start making it ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that definitely happened as soon as I knew what music production was. I was like sounds.
Yeah, man. Like for me, I would always be fascinated with just music in general, because the sounds that they use, the effects that they use, and like having the lyrics and stuff. It's just it moved me in a way I couldn't really explain. And then come to find
Mhm.
out, the songs that we hear on the radio where people actually made it, and it wasn't just a singer singing the song. Because back in the day, producers didn't have a lot of light, and it was just like everyone just knew the singer, yeah, the artist, and so it's kind of nice to see
Yeah.
like so many music producers, and they're getting the recognition that that they deserve now.
Right. And I think like going back to your point with, it isn't just it isn't just the singer singing this song. Like as a guitarist, or at least coming from that world, to me it's like, oh wow, it's not just someone like throws on an effect and then their voice just sounds like this.
Mhm.
And like at least in the recording is not like just something, it's like a flip a switch you flip and it just happens. No, there's like a lot more intricacies that go into it, just a number of things, and I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I feel like you don't really know about it until you actually get into it yourself, and I feel like it's the same with anybody. One question I want to ask is, how did Brian Fire come along? And was that your first and only stage name?
I'll say no, that wasn't my first stage name. I don't have a very long line of different stage names to choose from. So when I first started putting myself out there as an artist, I wanted to keep my own name. So Brian Garcia, like a gajillion Brian Garcias out there in the world. So clearly the Google search would not work.
Mhm.
um, so I was like, okay, I'll just simplify it. I'll go with BG. And then I started. This is around the time I started getting myself a little bit more educated about the music business and search engine optimization and who else has my name and if there would be any conflicts down the road regarding copyright. And with BG, there was. So if I'm getting my facts correct, BG is actually or he was a New Orleans rapper who was um, who was sentenced to, I think, a 12-year prison sentence back in 2012. Well, let's say the Brian Fire project does like turn out well. He could easily like come out of jail and then sue me or sorry, not Brian Fire, the BG project, the BG project. I'm thinking like, oh, dude, this guy can come out and sue me because I'm using the name BG, and I didn't want to deal with any of that. There's a similar story with Canadian superstar The Weeknd. There's a band also called The Weekend, spelled with actually The Weekend. So the Weekend, he decided to do The Weekend without the e at the very end for copyright sake. So it's just like precautionary stuff. I totally get it, and that's when I was on the hunt for what would soon become Brian Fire. Um, this would be about maybe 2-ish years ago, maybe less than a year ago. No, no, not less than a year ago. I think about between 1 and 2 years ago. I had a talk with one of my artist consultant friends, and I was asking her, I was consulting her about, okay, I really need to find a name. So I need you to kind of help me out here. Like, I want something that represents me as an artist. So, what is something that you would, because I didn't know her for super long. So I asked her, okay, look, what are some words that you would describe me, especially on first impressions, or how you would describe me with regard to music? And she was thinking, um, well, I kind of see you as, someone who has a lot of passion, someone that really, something has like ignites, something that ignites a lot of passion. Little did I know is that name would actually mean a lot to me at that particular time. So I can go a little bit further into that and say that the Brian Fire project kind of helped me escape a darker time that I was going through. But it was primarily like I had a fascination with how fire restarts and renews a number of things. So let's say let's say a wildfire in the forest. It'll burn down the trees, but after that, you'll see a lot of greenery show up afterwards. So there was a lot of poetic beauty to restarting. I needed to restart a number of things, rethink a number of things. So that kind of inspired me to continue on with the Brian Fire project. And I always see Brian Fire itself. I don't consider it. I'm obviously Brian Fire, but I don't consider it like completely me because I see it as an ideal. It's something to look up to. That's I of my logo, in the 3D form where you looking at it from a lower perspective, you're looking up to it. It's something that can't be achieved. It's something, it's an ideal. And I needed something like that in my life at the time. And it just helped inspired me to become a better person and helped inspired me to become a better musician for others. And I wanted to share my art with everyone at that time.
A lot of people I see, they have like a stage name that it just sounds good, backstory behind it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like stuff with a backstory. It was completely unintentional. I just want something that represented me and something that is me, or at least something that I wanted to achieve. And Brian Fire was just the right fit for it.
So, what is your, I guess, your weekly or daily schedule like?
It'll vary. I Okay, I'll say ideally my daily schedule would look like, and it's usually this. I mean, I usually wake up around 8 or 9, because I go to sleep pretty late, like 12 or 1. So I still need to get in my 8 hours. I'd wake up. Sometimes I'd grab breakfast with my dad. If not, I just make a small breakfast at home. Go to Starbucks, hash out some work either for the internship that I have, or it's not, the internship that I have, or I'll do a lot of songwriting because I love songwriting, either lyrics, chords, just composition and everything. So I educate or work on that a lot. It's just a lot of practice, and it's a lot of writing, actually, a lot of lyric writing, because that's where I know my weakness is right now. And then afterwards, go to work around 4, and then end the day around 10:30. Yeah, that would be like with the work schedule and everything. I usually like to try to fit in an hour of working out, an hour or two.
I'm like the complete opposite. I have to wake up like at 6:30 in
Oh
the
yeah.
morning because I got a day job like 8 to 5. So then I work out afterwards,
Mhm.
and then that's when I just kind of go home and I lock myself in my room and I just like do what I need to do, you know.
Yeah, I used to do that actually when I had a day job, and then the company itself actually downsized, so I just had to think on my feet, like, okay, I got to pick up something real quick. So I
Hmm.
picked up another job that's as a bartender. So that leaves me time in the morning, thankfully, but it also like kind of pushes me, especially if I'm on a short deadline of something that I want to have complete. I got to wake up early for that.
Right. I kind of wish I had my mornings to myself, but I try to wake up earlier sometimes. Like the other day, I woke up like at 5, and then
Mhm.
I edited my last podcast episode, and I just like hashed it out real quick. Then I went to work.
The grind is real, man. I like
Man,
that.
you just have to, man. I mean, like
That's right.
ideally, I don't want to do this job forever. So I mean, I want to do
Mhm.
music, but it's just like you just gotta find time in your day to do the work.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also in tandem with that, like understand the business side of things. That is so crucial. I think like when I first started going into music a little bit more seriously, I educated unfortunately and fortunately. But yeah, the business side of things is just so important, either with regard to distribution, marketing, little things you could do to improve brand or even outreach.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, have you read any music business books, or do you have any?
I read the Donald Passman book, the All
Hmm.
You Need to Know. It was I feel like I need to read it again because
Yeah.
there's just so much information. But I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I did get the gist of it, but in terms of like
Mhm.
breaking down every single little thing, I might have to revisit that book. But I kind of see like surface level stuff now and exposed to stuff that I wasn't exposed to before. I think I would have to revisit that. Yeah, one thing I did notice about you is like you're more educated on the music business a lot more than the other producers that I talk to.
Mhm.
Because, like everyone starts out with just putting a song on SoundCloud and link in bio, link in description type
Right,
stuff,
yeah.
and that's their marketing tactic. You know what I mean? You know, like they don't think to submit it to blogs, submit it to labels on YouTube, even like the
Mhm.
smaller ones, like the smaller guys. It doesn't have to be Trap Nation, Proximity,
Yeah.
or like all those big guys. Yeah. So my kind of content, or I guess my marketing strategy, it's all based on Gary Vee content on different platforms, talking
Yeah.
about what you love on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, you know,
Mhm.
pretty much all that stuff. What do you think you are doing different in terms of, you know, your brand and how you market your stuff?
Regard to how I'd be different as far as approach goes, I try to stay grounded with who I am, and I don't want to deter that from whom I'm not. So let's say, and it's a little bit of a divide at times because I'll see artists on, let's say, Twitter, for example, who will act in one way and that's who they are and it works out for them. They'll have a number of people who follow them. Either they're really talented in what they do or they create different side projects that people love and people are attracted to that. I could do that, but I feel like that would stray from who I am. I feel like it wouldn't be very genuine. I want to be genuine with what I do. If I'm gonna post, something on Instagram, it's gonna be intentional. Let's say, like, obviously, like Instagram is completely intentional with posts. Twitter is a little bit loose. You can speak with different artists, you can chat with them, you can, message them, and things are a little bit more, conversational on there. But other people use or like they do Instagram, and sometimes I'll do a little bit of marketing in that sense, being like, hey, if you like listening to Big Wild or you like Dead Mouse or something, I think you'd like this track I'm about to put out. I would love the support. Something as simple as that. Excuse me. And, something as simple as that is kind of a little bit more of me as opposed to venting on Twitter and that being a part of my brand. I mean, venting is not really a thing I do, especially in public. I want to draw a line between, my private public life. Of course, there needs to be that median. So in general, like most of it has just been trying to find who I am, what do I believe in, what do I want to do, what do I want to move forward with, and have that reflected in my brand. So one thing with my brand right now, it's a lot more visible on Instagram. So if you go on there, um, you'll see the different colors of either black and white, the black and white borders, or with my cover art for my upcoming single. There's complete opposite colors. There's red and there's blue. So I'm a huge fan of you can't have one without the other kind of concept. There needs to be a yin to the yang. I'm truly fascinated with that, and especially with where I was with creating Brian Fire. It was, oh, this makes sense to do and go about. So knowing who you are as an artist and what you want to do with your brand, where you want to move it towards, who you want to market to, those are the intentions that I go with, especially when it comes to how I present myself after I've made the music and how I present myself during the process of making music, especially with regard to lyrics.
I actually want to touch on that. Going back to what you said about, you know, people have like different personas, all that stuff. I feel like that stuff works in the short term to, I guess, gain a following, gain some, you know, some traction. But I feel like long term, that's not gonna last. Because just hearing you talk, you have a pretty straight cut, clear vision of everything that you post. Like you want it to be this way. Every song that you put out, it has to be this way. It has to sound like that. And it's like everything is intentional and it has a story behind it. And
Mm,
that's like part of building your personal brand. So I feel like people gravitate towards genuine people because, you know, like music producers, like especially the top ones, people forget that they're actually humans. You know, they're humans just like
yeah.
us. And to have that human touch to your post, your tracks, people gravitate towards that more. and it builds a stronger following than, somebody just acting like somebody else that they're not supposed to, or is kind of stupid, doing so. So it's pretty cool that you have a straight vision of your entire brand, because I feel like once you have a vision and you have that solid idea, like you pretty much set having that solid foundation. You know what I mean? It makes everything you do easier.
Yeah, yeah. You have an idea of what you or the direction you want to take, or even a new direction you want to branch out to.
Hmm.
I find that kind of stuff very important. Being one true to yourself, which ultimately makes you true to your artistry.
I also feel like that being true to yourself, it sets you apart from everybody else. Because I've seen so many videos about marketing and branding yourself, and they always say find your own voice and set yourself apart from everybody else. And I
Mhm.
feel like most people, they would ask that question of how do I do that? How do I set myself apart when I'm just a music producer? But I feel like the
Right.
the thing people miss is just being themselves sets them apart from everybody else, because there's no one like you. They could have the same, upbringing. They could grow up in the same area, go
Mhm.
through the same thing you do, but they can't be you. It's
I
kind of
agree.
like your sibling. You grow up in the same household, raised by same parents,
Can't.
but
Mhm.
you have different friends, different tastes in music, different life goals.
Mhm.
So I feel like when people think of it like that, it really does set them apart from everybody else.
I completely agree, and it's funny that you mentioned siblings because that is such a great analogy. Because my brother, I only have one brother, and he, yeah, grew up in the same household and everything. He exposed me to electronic music, but he's not a huge fan of it like I am right now.
Hmm.
He loves jam bands. I mean, I do too. I just love music overall. He loves jam bands, Grateful Dead, bluegrass, and I love all those. I've been to a bluegrass festival before, and that kind of stuff is refreshing. I love just people not only being themselves, but like creating a completely set of different music and using their own talents with their own different instruments, like a mandolin and a guitar and a upright bass guitar, or not guitar, but like upright bass. And it's fascinating how yeah, like what you said, you live in the same household, everyone has their own story. I used to think I didn't have my own story because obviously, someone living on this earth, you're always with yourself. You don't always see what people see you as. You are always stuck in your mind or in your body, and you're like, well, there's nothing really special. And just think about it. Like if you're stuck in this situation where you're trying to find your voice or yourself, just think of like, okay, so let's say you're a music producer and you want to find your own voice as a music producer. Okay, what are your favorite songs? What's some music that you really like, or maybe there's some underground music that you really like that you don't think anyone else likes, but you're like a huge fan of it. Think about like what elements of the track or of a genre make you feel. How does it make you feel, and how do you want to incorporate that into your music? It's a matter of stealing like an artist, and just playing around with it. Just find out who you are in that sense. That's pretty easy, and also getting to know who you are as a person is
Hmm.
very important for the rest of your life.
I completely agree. I've actually heard a lot of producers say, if you want to find your voice, look at different genres outside of the genre
Yep.
that you want to produce, and see what you do like, see what you don't like, and incorporate that into your tracks. And over time, you kind of find your own voice in terms of music production. I feel like that's how a lot of the top music producers start out. Because I remember listening to Illenium way back when, and I was like, he kind of makes the same music. He kind of sounds like Seven Lions, and then now he's like one
Mhm.
of the top producers, and he's selling out festivals and shows, and he's really found his
Mhm.
sound, and it took him up to the
Right.
top pretty much. Yeah, I think producers just need to put it into perspective that they do have a story to tell, especially when you're starting
Mhm.
out. You see these top producers, selling out shows, and you just kind of feel like, oh, I'm just a kid in my bedroom with a dream, and stuff like that. And like you kind of make
Mhm.
yourself feel smaller than you actually are. But then once you change that
Yeah.
mindset, I have a story. I have a sound that I want to,
Mhm.
to get out to the world, that's when you kind of start having like, I guess like a winner's mentality type of thing, you know?
Right. And let's say you are like whoever's if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're thinking like, well, no, no, I disagree. I don't, have a particular sound or I don't know who I am. I don't know how to go about it or whatnot. Just take the time. This stuff takes time, and don't. There's no need to force it. It's okay. Time will heal all wounds, they say. But you do have a voice. You do have your voice that's unique to you, and take that and run with it. It is an advantage, and if you don't know what your voice is, again, take the time to understand what you like. What are different things that inspire you? What songs make you feel a certain way, and how can you put that feeling into your music? Like Porter Robinson makes me feel a certain way. How do I put this type of feeling in music?
Mhm.
So that's it's a fellow feeling, yeah.
It's a Philip. I like that. I like that, dude. Um, so one thing that I think a lot of music producers, especially the ones that are just starting out,
Mhm,
this is a huge question in the music producer community.
mhm.
Do you need to know music theory? Yes or no?
Depends on where you wanna go with it. I do say you need at least learn the basics of it. If there's, like, maybe 10 solid videos of music theory, that could and you basically memorize and watch those, um, that'll take you a long way. But don't go down the rabbit hole. There is a whole rabbit hole. There you can get a degree on literally just like music education, music theory. Nothing wrong with that. But like if you want to stick with production, don't go down that rabbit. I know some music theory to an extent, and there's a lot that I don't know. At least learn the basics to know how to at least construct a song. Let's say the most basic thing, you want to have a four chord progression. You can start with that. But nowadays you have some resources that will literally give you the chords, and they'll either give you the MIDI or you can have a sound file, and you have the chords already.
Like the somatics team?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, like props to Cymatics for them, and shout out to them. That's how I met like some of the people I know in Atlanta now. But to me, particularly as an artist, like as an artist, not as a music producer, for me, I want to have my own chords that I create that is unique to myself, because where I feel I can have my own voice. If someone has a pack somewhere and they give it to you, it's technically not your own voice. That's the way I see it. Then again, I could be wrong. Someone else can take the MIDI pack and then put in different sounds, and it just sounds completely different. This is just the way that I associate my personal brand with.
Mhm.
I love creating chords. I love creating chord progressions, whether it's a 4 chord progression, 6 chord progression, or more recently an 8 chord progression. I like that stuff to be uniquely me. If you want to have, and this is my perspective on it, if you want to have a clear cut voice to it, you're like your own voice to your chords, like these are my chords, this is my progression. Just learn basic music theory, find a solid, they don't have to be 15 minutes, just make it 10-minute cut, see resonate with you, which ones make the most sense to you, stick by those and let those kind of light the path for you starting out. Of course, down the way, you might be more curious and look into more things and go down the rabbit hole, but don't get sucked into it immediately. Just learn your way about it. And that's my whole, spiel about it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like you don't need it, but it's like it's definitely a great advantage, over those who don't really know
Very
much
much
about
so.
it. And
I
touching
agree.
on, what you said about creating your own chords, it can really go both ways if we're being honest, because a lot of artists, they want when they are looking for, beats, just starting out, they may want to sound like a certain a big artist saying, I want this
Right.
type of vibe or whatever. But then there's also artists like you where it's like, I want to make my own lane. Both ways are perfectly fine. It all just boils down to who you are pretty much.
Yeah, so we have a number of artists in the world that are huge, and we already have those artists. We don't need another one. You know,
Hmm.
we already have a Little Dicky. You sound like Little Dicky? Well, cool. We already have one, so we really don't need you. You know, we're still going to pay attention more to the bigger artists who has themselves one established and have their own sound already. So, and like, so it's very important to find who you are. Maybe okay, so maybe you're a techno producer. Okay, build like the fattest kick, or just build a really great sounding kick, really tight hats, layer them, saturate them, compress them, EQ them, just make them sound uniquely you, and those are yours. You know, just whether the sound is in your drums, your chords, your lyrics, even, or just your personal sound, just ultimately be you. Does the world have yet? Does the world have a Brian Fire yet? It's up to you to be that next step. Does the
See,
world have you yet?
right,
No. Yeah,
yeah.
be the best version of yourself.
The beautiful thing about being yourself and establishing yourself is you're going to get a lot of resistance at first because it's like who is this person? Why does their sound like this? Why are the chords like this? It's totally unorthodox. It doesn't make sense. But after a while, I feel like when you put yourself out there enough, genuinely, people will gravitate towards it. And that's another way of finding yourself and finding your
Hmm.
sound. Because I feel like a lot of people, they, like we mentioned earlier, how they kind of take different genres and put it into their own production, kind of gaining some
Hmm.
traction and then, finding their own sound that way. Or you can start from the get and do everything yourself and establish your sound and have some resistance. But then in the long term, you have like a solid following.
Yeah, I agree. You'll like the following that you will create as you will be a much stronger, tight knit group of people. Let's say the people who first started following Rez or Alice in Wonderland. Those people, those are a very tight group of people, or even IO. Let's see this person when they, first started on Mousetrap, or even before Mousetrap. There's a community that will follow your music as long as you're true to yourself and you have this something that is literally you.
Yeah, I think this whole conversation, if we just to sum it up, it's just find out who you are and just pretty much stick with it. And I feel like once you figure that out, everything will be a lot easier. Of course, you got to put in the work and,
Mhm,
educate yourself about music production, the business side, and all that
mhm,
aspect. But once you figure who you are, everything just
mhm.
makes a lot more sense.
There's no need to rush that that process that is so important. Enjoy the process. Come on, man. Yes, it's all about the process.
That's what Gary Vee says. I listen to that man
Hmm.
religiously. He
Yeah.
he pretty much said once you start loving the process, you're on the right track to
Hmm.
winning. And I couldn't agree more.
No, yeah, I agree. I agree. I used to listen to him a lot, and I agree with a lot of the things he says. And he has incredible perspective and a real influence in entrepreneurial market for people creating their own businesses, and also the musician side of it. He really is a really great voice for people like us.
See, the crazy thing is anybody can listen to him. When he talks, people will listen. And he changes lives. Like he would always say that he gets emails and DMs from people saying, I was in death, I was depressed, I was having all these issues. And just listening to him and executing on what he's talking about a year down the road, 2 years down the road, their life just like completely flips 180 and they're the happiest person
Hmm.
in the world. They're fit, they have a voice, they're influencing other people and I feel
Yeah,
like anybody can just listen to him and take action and change their lives drastically.
I agree. Obviously, there will be pushback because of the way he represents himself, but know that he is literally uniquely himself as as he's speaking. You're like, oh, dude, you're 60. You're so. I mean, you can just start tomorrow, and he has that really positive and get after it attitude,
Right.
which I'm totally for. I can see how some people get off put by him, but the man is right, you know?
And
Yeah.
like for music producers too, if they think it's too
Mhm.
late to start, it's never too late. Like I saw this post, like Armin van Buuren was a lawyer before becoming like one of the biggest trance DJs
Mhm.
in the world. Imagine having a stable job as a lawyer. Um,
Yeah.
like most people, like they're pretty much set. But imagine, making that change from being a lawyer to doing music. It's like it's never too late.
Yeah. And, actually, I forget the name of it. I can look it up real quick, but, um, there's this Armin van Buuren documentary on YouTube. I think it's like a six-part video series of like 10 minutes or so, 10 minutes each video. And it's about him and his making for his most recent, or his at least like one of the biggest tours he had, some years ago. And it went over that part where he was where he was at law. Yes, he did practice law. He's very educated in it. So like from a young age, he still worked at it. He just got the job because he thought that was the path he was supposed to take. I believe his parents were like, you should be doing this instead of pursuing music. But things kicked off for him. He played at the right venues. He talked to the right people. It's timing with that regard. He really just put himself out there as a music artist while he was a lawyer. So that stuff is important. It is a balance. It does take
Mhm.
time. So just know there's a number of paths to take to becoming an artist or a music producer or whatever you want to do, and that path is uniquely yours. I used to read stories of how Porter Robinson got, how Joel Zimmerman, Deadmau5, got to where he was. I listened to interviews of I.O., where he started out in DC, and compare myself to these stories and thinking like, oh, well, if I did this, I can follow that. Or even the Chainsmokers story of finding Halsey. They found her when Bloghouse was huge on Hype Machine. When that era was still booming, they discovered on Hype Machine and kind of grew from there. Now playlisting is a huge thing. Blogs are kind of going in and out, but they're still there. They still have importance, just like how radio still has importance. Everyone has their own path and their own story. Be diligent, get educated on the things to do now as opposed to things that were done back then, because the music industry is always evolving, always changing. Just get yourself out there, have people get you, have your name be shown, let's say on Instagram. If you use Instagram ads, make sure your name is out there often, or you post or you post stories often, or maybe even on your Snapchat if you're going through marketing that way, like DJ Khaled did,
Mhm.
or if you're going to go through Twitter and kind of grow yourself through there. There are a number of different venues, endless venues. Like even Shawn Mendes was discovered on Vine when it was still around. Sean Wasabi, perfect example. I know Cymatics likes to talk about him as well. He blew up even more on TikTok. Justin Bieber was discovered on YouTube. So there is the like number of different venues that you could take. So let's just go for it. I mean,
Mhm.
it won't hurt. Be true to yourself. Be you.
Once you start putting yourself out there and you're being true to yourself, all of those
Mhm.
extra, those outside noises don't really matter. Because,
Yeah.
like, I guess the way I think of it is why judge yourself so harshly when there's other people already doing that? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's like you're doing their job for them, like times two, because not only are they judging you, but you're judging yourself too. And it's like, and people will judge you whether you are yourself or you're not. So why not
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
just really be yourself?
One of my favorite examples of this exactly is Alice in Wonderland. She is an incredibly talented girl, from being a musician herself, playing cello, and still being really good at it, and becoming a touring DJ and fantastic producer and songwriter. and vocalist,
Mhm.
people still like downplay the fact that she's gotten to this level like with her uniqueness, her own sound. Obviously, like over time, she goes a team that helps her out, but she started out by being herself and, DJing music that she liked or creating music that she liked. And people still judge her. Like to this day, it's mind-boggling for me, um, just to see the amount of success that she has. Like you will always have critics. You will have people who will judge you,
Mhm.
but those people are not you.
Right. Yeah.
You know how to take yourself.
Yeah, one thing that I tell myself is, there are people that is playing on the field, and there's people that is in the benches, and it's mainly the people that sit on the sidelines and the benches are the ones that judge you the most. It's like you're the one putting
Mm,
yourself out there. You're the one doing. What are they doing? So it shouldn't really matter.
right. And I was actually I thought you were gonna take the analogy in a different way. Like let's say, okay, so let's put the analogy in this sense. Everyone you look up to, artist, producer, songwriter, anything, those are the people on the field, and you're on the sideline and you're on the benches. You could be one of those people judging. You could easily judge them and like, oh well, this person's doing this. Well, I don't care for that. Or you could be one of those people on the sideline practicing. Either doing physical conditioning, or maybe you're the kicker and you're just going to be practicing, kicking. Are you going to be doing nothing on the sideline? Gonna sit there and judge? Are you going to practice to be on the field with everyone?
Mm.
Or are you just going to rest on your laurels and sit quietly?
That's another way to really think about it too. I guess one last question. I guess the big question is,
Mhm.
what is your ultimate goal with music?
My ultimate goal is to reach as many people as possible. I mean, the legacy I'll leave behind is ultimately my music, my goal. And I want to be remembered as, a good man who did this, who did his best, who changed and who helped a lot of people over this time. I guess this is where my influence of pop music into my music comes from. I love how pop is universal, and my goal is to be as universal as that. I just want to reach out to many people, and I want to be a positive influence to them, for them. And that was a lot of responsibility, but as long as I can help some people down the road with my music, i think I think I've done well with that
I like that.
then. Thanks.
I think this is a good stopping point. Man,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. And I feel like whoever listens to this will gain a lot of insight on finding themselves, finding their voice, if they're lost right now. For even those who've already found their voice and found their sound, it's just like a great reminder of not straying away from who you really are. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm excited to get myself out there.
Well,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, man, no problem. Where can everybody find you?
So everyone can find me on Instagram and Twitter. That is at BrianFire_. It's Brian with an I. And you can find me on SoundCloud as well, Brian Fire. You can find me on Spotify as well, Brian Fire. Pretty much it, unless you want to add me on TikTok too. I mean, like that's cool.
That's the new wave now, TikTok.
It's the new way. Yeah, you can find me at BrianFire_ on TikTok if you're so curious as well.
All right, man. Well, again, thank you for coming on the podcast, and I guess that's a good stopping point.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate this, and keep it up with the podcast. I really do enjoy it.
Thank you, man. All right. So until next time.
Until next time, dude. Peace.
All right, man. Take care.